with our last art and mindfulness lesson today. So kind of like what I do in my classroom, we spend a lot of time working on the skills and techniques, and then we put it into practice by getting inspired by other artists and then making our own artwork. So that's what we're going to do in this lesson. We're going to look at the work of Jean-Michel Basquiat, which I told you we would be looking at. And then I'm going to explain to you what to do, or what maybe to do, with some of these drawings that you completed in the previous lessons. So let's take a look together at Jean-Michel Basquiat. So this quote that I showed at the beginning of the lesson, just wanted to go over it one more time and just appreciate the words of Basquiat and how he tries not to think about actual making of art. So just like we did in our past activities, we weren't really worrying about whether it was wrong or right or attaching to product. We were just thinking about what was going on either inside of us with our breath or around us by looking at our paper and feeling how it felt to draw with our pen or our marker. So let's take a look at Basquiat. You might have seen some of his work before. It might look familiar to you, or it might be completely new and you're like, who is this person who is scribbling? And he could actually draw realistic, but he chose to do this signature style of scribbling, symbols, and lots of imagery. So he used lots of skulls and crowns to show his struggle between feeling really low and feeling really great, and the material things, all the stuff in the world, and compared to the intellectual world. So there were a lot of things that Basquiat, two-sided things, that he wanted to show the good side and the bad side of himself and even our society. If you look at some of his artwork, like it says Mattel in the background of the painting on the right, and that is a toy company. So he is trying to express through of his culture, of himself in his artwork. So that's what art is really all about, is expressing your feelings, and it doesn't have to be about just one particular thing. And I love that Basquiat's work is just sort of messy and in your face and colorful, and there's not necessarily a wrong or right on his pieces. These are some of his more famous pieces that he's done here. He had so many ideas floating around in his head, and he gets his emotions out with his scribbles. So art doesn't have to be necessarily beautiful, right? It doesn't have to be a painting of a bowl of fruit that some dead person did in the 1800s. It can be exciting, and it can just get out whatever it is inside you. And that's the goal of this mindfulness activity, is to really focus on your inner self and how you feel and what colors and lines and shapes speak to you. So when I was younger, before I went to art school, I was kind of a perfectionist. And I wrote a lot, and I drew a lot, and I made a lot of artwork, and I was into music and theater, so I really liked all these things, but I was really into perfection. So when I saw artists like Basquiat, I thought, oh, what is that really art? Is that mess art? So if you are one of those people and you're skeptical, I want you to really tap into the messy side of you and try to get rid of that perfectionist that's in there somewhere. At least poke and prod your perfectionist a little bit. All right, give them a good talking to, and tell them that you don't always have to be perfect, and your stuff doesn't always have to be great for you to appreciate it. And the proof of that is that during this series, I have put up over here some of my finished mindfulness drawings that I don't necessarily love, but they are something that I completed, and I'm proud of that. They were fun to do. They helped me go through a particularly rough time. I made them at the beginning of the COVID pandemic thing, so like in in March I started making those. So yeah, they remind me of a time when I used art to help me get through it. So I'm giving that to you as motivation before I show you what we're going to do for the last lesson. All right, so I know I told you not to get too attached to the product, and I'm still sticking with that, but I want you to pick one of the drawings or paintings that you did in the last 2 lessons, and I want you to turn it into a finished piece of work. So remember when I showed you my drawings and I said that they weren't the best drawings that I've ever done, but I still put them up behind me during all of these lessons to show you that it's okay for your work to not be perfect. So now it's your turn to pick the one that looks the most interesting to you and try to finish it. I want you to honor the process of mindfulness. So I'll remind you of listening to your breath, trusting yourself, not judging or attaching too much thoughts to the process. And like Basquiat says, don't think about art when you're making it. Just think about life. So think about what's around you. Think about something that inspires you while you're creating the rest of the piece. And of course, I'm going to show you examples in just a second here, but I want you to share your drawings and on Instagram with a PS Creates hashtag and show us what you managed to finish. So I'm going to show you some of my other examples besides the ones behind me. These are random mindfulness scribbles that I've done in the past that I've turned into little collages with paint. Here's another one. This actually was one that I did with my daughters too. So you'll see some scribbles on there from me and some from my daughters. And then we turned it into a fun little finished piece with just lines and colors and little alien down in the left-hand corner there with its spikes out of its head. So we had fun with that one. And this one is another one that I completed. Mindfulness doodles. This was all marker. And here are some of my students. Now these are all mostly 9th and 10th grade works. The students really took their drawings to all kinds of different places. So you can see there's no right or wrong with how to finish your drawings. It can be simple. It can be complex. You can add more patterns and colors and lines. It's just kind of how you feel. Someone used their watercolor in the middle here. Someone just started filling in colors and shapes. There's no right or wrong here. This one in the middle feels like a tree with a face and big red lips, but maybe that's not what that person wanted at all. This person painted their breath in little zigzags and then went back in and did designs around those zigzags to represent their breath. So get inspired by these students. Be inspired by Basquiat and create something. Maybe you'll be super proud of it. Maybe it'll just be a good experience and a reminder of the time that you used art and mindfulness. So I want to ask you a few final questions, things that you can reflect on. We're going to refer back to the inquiry questions. What is mindfulness? How can we practice it? And why might you use it in the future, going forward? Even if you don't necessarily use all of the art skills, how can you use mindfulness in your life? And how can you use art to help you with your mindfulness? And most importantly, the last inquiry question, what did you learn about yourself through this process? I'd like you, if you have a journal or if you just do it in a notebook or a piece of paper, I want you to write down after you complete your final piece. So after you've chosen one of your pieces and transformed it into something wonderful, and I'd like you to write down only 3 things. And you can write as much or as little as you want. But these are the 3 prompts. I am, I feel, and I have. I am, I feel, I have. So think about those things. I'm going to show you my example and how I completed one of my mindfulness drawings from the last lesson. And then I'm going to post the reflection at the end of the video so that you again get a chance to remember the reflection questions and reflect on the overall experience that you had. I hope that you learned something about mindfulness, but most importantly, I hope that you learned something about yourself. Thanks for doing this with me. So I chose this drawing because I really liked the shininess of it, like I told you before. So I wanted to make this drawing look like some sort of a being. It's going to be a representation of myself and the different parts of myself. So each side has a different color representing different parts, and then the line down the middle, which sort of shows that everything is unified. And I use different colors and lines around the outside to represent all of the feelings and emotions in my life, good and bad, ups and downs. Try to be mindful of all of them, and that was the inspiration that I had.